Welcome to the Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013 New Features Series. This course was built on beta versions of Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013, so there may be some slight differences in the released product. This course will only cover new features, so knowledge of previous versions of Microsoft Dynamics CRM is a prerequisite. Now, let me present your trainer.
Welcome to Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013 Application New Features. My name is Ishita Kunwar, and I will be presenting today's session on additional features for CRM 2013. Now we're going to talk about Bing Maps in CRM 2013. Mapping integration was provided for accounts, contacts, and leads with December 2012 service update for all CRM Online customers. This integration leveraged the Bing Maps API to render maps for these entities in the CRM user interface. You will see now that in CRM 2013, this mapping integration is also available for on-premise customers. They would need to set up a Bing Maps API developer key for their installation and also copy the same information about the key into the system settings for their CRM system. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we can set up the developer key, as well as what would be the procedure to actually obtain it from the Bing Maps API website. Now I'm going to walk you through how you can configure Bing Maps to display on CRM on-premise. As discussed, you would need to set up the developer key in a system settings. If the developer key has not been configured in the system settings area, then here is the view that we would see if we launch into an entity like accounts. You will see that a Bing Maps control is available, but there is an error message specified in the center prompting us to sign up for a free developer account at bingmapsportal.com. Let's go ahead and navigate to this website. On landing into this website, you have an option to either create a new user or sign in with your live ID as an existing user. So in this particular case, I'm going to use my live ID to sign in. As soon as I sign in with my live ID account, some announcements are typically displayed as soon as we're landed into the website about the Bing Maps service. So in this particular case, we are interested in obtaining a key from this website. So what you would need to do is, towards the left, there's an option to create or view keys. We can go ahead and click on the create keys. Once you land into this screen, you have options to create keys of either trial or basic for your application types. Trial keys expire after 90 days and cannot be converted to basic keys. In this particular case, for this demo, I'm going to use a trial key. So we're going to specify an application name in the Bing Maps portal area. And we're also going to specify an application URL. In this particular case, I'm going to specify my application URL, which is not externally facing. Notice that we can set our keys to either trial or basic, and there is an option to look up more information about this. So if you land into this page on Microsoft.com, this explains the breakdown of how you can use trial keys, what the limits are in regards to that. Also, there's information about basic keys as well as enterprise keys. Now I'm going to enter the verification code so I can go ahead and test for the Bing Maps API. Once the key has been created successfully, I'm going to look up the key. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy the key. And we're going to try and use this in our system settings for CRM. So we can click on Settings and under the Administration area. So in System Settings, we can click into so that it can open up the dialog, and you will see that in the General tab, there is an option to specify the Bing Maps key. I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. Let's go ahead and refresh my website and land back into the account page. So now I will click on Accounts, and this will take me to the entity grid, and we can launch an existing account. Notice now that the Bing Map control is rendering the address that was entered into the composite control. And there is no error message prompting about the credentials, so the Bing Maps control is now successfully rendering information from the Bing Maps API due to the correct key being specified for it. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and change the address. And notice as soon as we do that, the Bing Maps control is now updating to the specific address that I had provided. And based on the input that I had provided in my flyout or my composite control, the Bing Maps API has updated the control to specify the same address. So this same type of mapping control could be used on different entities. Also note that since composite controls cannot be customized in this release, that is, they are shipped out of the box for specific out-of-the-box entities, Bing Maps control would be useful only on specific types of entities. What I mean by that is if we look at a custom entity, for example, on my system, I have a custom entity which was created called mapping control. If I look at the forms for this and go ahead and open up the main form, notice that when we click on the Insert tab, the Bing Maps control insertion option is not available. And this is because there are no fields of address type or full name type that are identified by the system, where inserting the Bing Maps control could be tied to a composite control. So in summary, there are some limitations with how composite controls can be used in this release, since they're only available for some out-of-the-box entities. So specific to the limitations of the composite controls, you will see that Bing Maps controls cannot be inserted on every form, or that it can't be used for custom entities. Now let's talk about the autosave functionality in CRM 2013. The autosave functionality was introduced in the December 2012 service update. This feature automatically allows users to save changes in their forms every 30 seconds after the first edit is done. First edit means that once a field on your form is dirty. Autosave helps users focus on their work without having to manage saving the data in the form. So if someone else has updated the same form while you were editing it, those changes will be retrieved and displayed in the form when autosave occurs. One thing to note about autosave functionality is that if you do have plugins, workflows, or form scripts that execute when a record is saved, they will be run each time autosave occurs. For some organizations, this may lead to undesirable behaviors. where these extensions were not designed to work with the autosave. So for this reason, we have also provided an option to disable the autosave functionality at an organization level. You can do this via the system settings area for the organization. And one thing to note about this is that you can only disable the setting at an organization level. You cannot do it per form or per entity based on the CRM interface. We will talk about one other option though in the next slide. Now, specific to a scenario where you have a lot of custom logic, or specifically if you have plugins that are firing that could be triggering due to the autosave functionality getting triggered by end user action, the first recommendation we make is that you must ensure that your plugins are firing only for specific field updates. They should not be firing for general updates. This is a best practice for the SDK plugins across the board. Via the SDK, we provide a way to get the save mode for the form while it is open. And once we're able to retrieve the save mode, we can detect if the save was triggered due to an autosave, and if so, there's another method that we have now provided called prevent default, which allows you to write to the server in order to stop the save every 30 seconds. Let's go ahead and do a deeper dive now about the autosave functionality. Now I'm going to show you how autosave functionality works on existing account records in CRM 2013. So on this particular organization, autosave is enabled right now. So notice first of all that on the command bar there is no save button. Instead, what you see is towards the bottom on the status bar near the footer, there's an option to save. So there's a clickable save button towards the extreme bottom right corner. In order to trigger the autosave functionality, we're going to go ahead and make a small change with the account name. After doing so, notice that unsaved changes text displays in the status bar, meaning that there are some changes on the form which have not been saved by the user yet. Now, after an interval of 30 seconds, you will notice that the account name has been updated automatically, so I did not have to click on the save button in the status bar, and instead the account name was updated via the autosave functionality. So what I can do to verify this is I can click on the accounts grid again. And when I do so, I notice that the account name has now been updated. Now that we have verified that autosave functionality is working, let's go ahead and disable this for our organization. In order to do so, we will click on the settings option in the navigation bar. And then we will click on System Settings. On landing into System Settings, you will notice that there is an option to select the default save option for all forms. In this case, it was set to yes, so I will go ahead and select no. And this will be an organization-wide change. Let's go ahead and click OK now. And we're going to land back on our home page. Now let's go and take a look at the accounts grid again. So let's go ahead and also open up an existing account record. Once the autosave functionality was disabled, notice now that a save button is available. And also a keyboard shortcut for Control S is also available to explicitly save the form. You will notice that towards the bottom in the status bar, the save button is still available. So if we were to make a change on the form by updating the account name again, the status bar will also notify you that there are some unsaved changes that are occurring on the form. The difference in this scenario is that in order to save the form, you would have to do an explicit save by clicking on the save button, or you can alternately click on the save button in the status bar. But the save that occurs every 30 seconds in a predefined interval will no longer occur organization-wide. I do want to highlight that there are some actions in CRM 2013 which are equivalent to an explicit save. What I mean by that is that even after having disabled the autosave functionality, if the user takes any of the following actions, a save would be fired by the platform automatically. These scenarios are if you were to click on the save button in the command bar, which we discussed, or if you were to click on the save button in the status bar, which we also discussed, or if you were to navigate away from the page by doing any of the following. So if we click on a linked record, or if we click on the browser back button, or if we close the window, meaning if it is a pop-up window, or if we click on an associated grid. So in this case, let's go ahead and click on the back button. So at this point we know that autosave functionality has been disabled. However, when I navigate away from the page, notice now that my account name has updated to the change that I was trying to make. So if we open up this form, due to the fact that I navigated away from the page, the account name was automatically updated since this was considered to be an explicit user action. So the different strategies that we have discussed to disable the autosave for your organization, those are applicable to the 30-second interval save that kicks in for CRM 2013. But the save that would occur by default from the platform due to navigating away from the website, that would still occur. So that is something that is not tied to the autosave experience and is by design. So I just wanted to clarify that to make sure that there's no confusion about why a record may be getting saved when you're navigating away from it. So we've discussed one way to disable autosave across the entire organization. Now there is another way that you can use the SDK in order to disable the autosave on a per form basis. This has also been discussed in the SDK documentation, which you could refer to, but I'm going to quickly demonstrate how that would work. So let's go ahead and going to click on customization for the form. I have created a JavaScript web resource already, so let's go ahead and access that. So I have a form library called new prevent autosave. I'm going to click into it and give you a quick rundown of what is listed in here. So basically here I have a function which is called prevent autosave with a parameter for the context. So I'm passing in the context for the form. Part of the logic basically checks for what the get save mode for the event is. A save mode of type 70 has been introduced in CRM 2013 to indicate that the save is occurring due to the autosave interval of 30 seconds. So basically what we can do is we can implement an if check that if we find that the get save mode is 70, then in that case we want to prevent the save. And I also threw in an alert so I can verify whether my logic is firing correctly. So let's go ahead and copy this function name, and I'm going to register this on the onSave method. So we're going to add this library and specify our function name. Because the execution context is the first parameter, you must checkmark this so that it gets passed into the function correctly. Let's go ahead and click OK here. And now we're going to save and publish this. Now we're going to test the JavaScript that has been written by navigating back into the accounts grid and opening up an existing account. So now I'm going to update the account name in order to test if my JavaScript is working as expected. So as you can see, as soon as I made the field dirty for the account name, the JavaScript fired and notified me that the save mode was 70. Therefore, the save was prevented. So if we click OK, what that would mean is that the changes on the form are still unsaved, even though autosave is enabled for the organization. So the two strategies that customers can follow for disabling autosave is either they can disable the autosave across the entire organization via system settings, or they can leave autosave enabled and identify some specific forms that are triggering the autosave frequently, and go ahead register some JavaScript to detect the save mode and prevent the default autosave functionality on those forms. So this again could be form specific, and you could identify the entities for those forms as well. So quite a few options there. And again, just to verify, so this was for my account entity, and if you look at settings, in system settings, at this point autosave is enabled on all forms. So if I were to disable the autosave, I would not require the JavaScript, but the JavaScript is there for the specific scenario where a customer does have needs for the autosave, but wants to prevent the autosave from happening for specific scenarios for entities. Now we're going to talk about people pictures in CRM 2013. In CRM 2011, there was no way of associating a picture to any entities. This had been a limitation for people entities like users, contacts, leads, etc., where customers may have been using web resources perhaps in the header to get around the limitation. So now in CRM 2013, the image data type is supported as a first-class data type, which opens up the door for the web client to also render these images. We will discuss about the image data type in detail in the customization course. For now, I want to highlight a few things about images in CRM 2013. CRM 2013 only supports one image per entity. The default image will be enabled for certain out-of-the-box entities. There are no custom image fields for out-of-the-box entities, but for custom entities, you can add an image field. Specifically, images now can be stored at a maximum resolution of 144 by 144 pixels, which is determined by our dependencies on the CRM for tablets. Also, the uploaded images will be cropped to square, and they can be resized if needed. The out-of-the-box entities that will be image enabled by default are contact, account, lead, and user. These are the four people type of entities that you will see with the option to display images. As far as the image upload experience, Now you can click into the contact record and select the representation of the image, which would allow you to upload a picture. And once you have the picture uploaded into CRM, the contact will update with the representation of that picture. Now these images that you're uploading into CRM, they're also available as relative URLs that are addressable from the platform. The images do load up asynchronously so that it doesn't affect form load performance. Also, when an image is updated, the change would reflect in activity feeds as well. Now I'm going to walk you through how to upload images in CRM 2013. Let's take a look at an existing contact. As you can see in the header bar, there is an option to click into an image representation. Right now you're seeing the default image, which is empty. Let's go ahead and click into this. Notice in an in-page experience now the image uploader opens up. So I can go ahead and select any image from my computer. Let's go ahead and click OK. So notice now the image is available on the contact. Let's go ahead and click out of the contact. And on clicking into the record again, you will see the image represented on the contact. So this is the image that best represents the particular contact that we're looking at. The other option I do want to also show you is how the image attribute is being displayed on the particular form we're looking at. So let's go ahead and click on the contacts grid again, and we're going to try to customize the entity. So in this particular case, let's land in forms, and let's go ahead and select the information form, which appears to be active by default. So in this particular case, contact and information are both active. Let's go ahead and select the contact main form. In the contact main form, you will notice that there is an image representation at the top of the form. And how this is determined is basically if you click on form properties and then we can click into the display tab, there is an option to either show image in the form or not. So this is a per form setting. So if I go ahead and uncheck this, notice now that the image representation is no longer there. So this is a way for you to quickly decide, perhaps out of 5 different forms, you want images to be applicable only to 2 of those. So you could go ahead and change this setting and ensure that. And we will discuss in further detail about how the image attributes are actually set up on a per entity basis, and that will be discussed further in the customization course. Now I'm going to talk about a new functionality in CRM 2013 called Access Teams. A common scenario in some industries like the financial industry involves a set of users that work on a client relationship who want to have access to the records that may be related to the client. So these set of users could vary across different client records. Now, with the current security model that is in place in CRM 2011, the customer needs to model a scenario using owner type of teams, meaning that roughly they would need to create a team per record. They would also need to assign a security role to the team, which would allow for access to the entity record, as well as the team would need to own the specific record. So there is a business need for ownership of records to a group of users today. But in many cases, the ownership is limited to a static set of teams rather than a dynamic set. Currently, the teams in CRM 2011 need security roles to be enabled for ownership. What you will see is that in CRM 2013, these type of teams are now being classified as owner teams, since they are based on the concept of ownership. For a more dynamic team-based scenario, where a team of users needs access but not ownership, a new category of teams will now be available. So these teams are considered collaboration-based, and they will be referred to in the user interface as access teams. These teams do not need to be assigned any security roles, and they are not cached either, so they can scale to large numbers. Also, one of the goals for this feature is that now any entity could be enabled for access teams, meaning that team templates can be specified where we can state the team name, the team access rights for records of the entity type, and the team collaboration connection roles. One team per record would be allowed by default for all deployments. This restriction can be eased for on-premise deployments in order to allow for more than one team per record. But for the CRM 2013 release, this limit cannot be changed for CRM Online. So the platform security model will now automatically create the template teams when a record is created. And there will be a check to ensure that the team is only created when there is at least one user other than the owner that needs access. The platform security layer will automatically grant access then to the records of this entity type for the access team. And we also allow for each related entity through its relationship to the parent collaboration entity, so that the collaboration team members that need access to the related records of the parent entity can get the access. Also, under the hood, the principal object access table is being used to enable these access teams. So there have been some optimizations that have been made for the table so that we can ensure that there is no negative performance impact due to this new type of construct. Now here are some examples for how some business scenarios would model access teams. So we have perhaps an account team which may be working together on a specific account, which could include different type of roles like a sponsor or a support representative. And then also there may be an opportunity team where salespeople would be working together on sales opportunities, and it may consist of different type of roles. So again, the modeling needs to be flexible so that per opportunity, perhaps we have a different access team that is tied to that specific opportunity, consisting of different type of users that collaborate together on the opportunity. Also take a look at how we can actually enable an entity for the new access teams functionality. So when you look at your entity types in CRM 2013, now you will see an option under communication and collaboration where you can check mark creating access teams. When you do that, now you could create new access team templates that are tied to that specific entity. So in this screenshot, you see cases where cases are being enabled for access teams. Also in CRM 2013, administrators can define access team templates for an entity via the administration area. So what that would mean is then that the template could be created for any entity that has been enabled for access teams. And there are 7 types of access rights available. You see some of them in the screenshot on the slide deck. There is an out-of-the-box sales team template that we do ship, and it will be called the Opportunity Sales Team Template. I will walk through that in a quick demo. Also note that if you change access rights for the team template, the changes are only applied to the newly created access teams. So going forward, if there were existing teams that were using the team template, those would not be affected. Also, a subgrid has been introduced to support adding users to entity records for defining these access teams based on the team templates we talked about. So when you're configuring your subgrid, you would specify which access team template to use. So the subgrid is, as you can see, based on the user's entity, and it uses the following query that we're basically looking for all users that belong to associated record team of type access team template for the particular record. Also note that the dependencies between the entity and the form are being managed, so that if your form has a team template that is embedded as a subgrid, we will ensure that the team template is not deleted. Additionally, when the first member is added, at that point we would actually create the team of access type under the hood. And this screenshot here demonstrates how the subgrid would actually be rendered for the case entity. So you would see a subgrid where you could dynamically add different users as well as different type of connection roles for those users on a per record basis, so per case in this particular instance. One way to also access these teams is to navigate out to teams and create a team of type access team. We do provide the ability to convert owner-based teams to access teams and vice versa. Now I'm going to walk you through the experience of how you would actually add a new team of type access team in the user interface. So when you land on settings and administration, notice we have an option to add teams or also add access team templates. In this particular case, I'm going to start by landing on teams. So notice that there is a view picker here. As part of the changes for CRM 2013, you will see a new system view for all user access teams. So if I switch to this view, notice that I have an existing access team that I had created. But if I just switch my view to all teams, by default it only shows the owner-based teams, which is the CRM 2011 based experience. So let's go ahead and create a new access team. On clicking on the new button, now you see an option to specify a team name. So let's go ahead and specify a team name called account team. The team is mapped to a business unit, which in this case is just the default business unit. An administrator needs to be specified. So I'm going to default it to my user. Now there is an option to set a specific team type. So as you would notice, by default it is set to owner, which is the ownership based teams. However, since I'm trying to create an access team, I'm going to switch this to access. Now we can click on the save button. At this point our team type has been set, and notice there is a lock icon, meaning that I can't change the team type from here. And also from this grid on the right, I can add team members into this. So I could go ahead and look up existing system users and add a few users into my team. So I've added Andy and Jim, who are different users in my system, into this particular access team. So let's go ahead and save this team, and let's land back on the administration area and take a look at teams. So we have our access teams available. Let's go ahead and click into the account team. So one of the options that is available for access teams is that we can convert owner-based teams that were available since CRM 2011 to the new option of access-based teams. I'm going to demonstrate how to do that. So let's go ahead and create another team now. And we're going to specify an administrator for the team. And we're going to leave the team type set to owner. So notice when you do so, there's an option now to convert to access team available on the command bar. Now, because this is an owner-based team, I would need to assign a role to this team. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to assign the default role of salesperson. Having assigned a role to this owner team, now you can also go ahead and add additional users. So we can add Nancy, and also we can add another user like Tessa. So notice after having saved this, let's go ahead and try to convert this particular opportunity selling team to an access team. So notice as soon as you try to convert this to an access team, you get a dialog stating that all the queues and mailboxes that are associated with the team would need to be deleted. So this is a warning that does get displayed, and this would always occur, meaning that every time if you had an owner team that needed to be converted to an access team, in that particular case, all the queues and the mailboxes associated with that owner team would have to be deleted before you can complete the conversion. So let's go ahead and try to click OK on this. Notice I get an error now, and the error is specifically happening because I have a security role assigned to my owner team. So the error is pretty specific in that it states that you can't change the team to an access team because there are security roles or field security profiles assigned. And you can always download the log file and look at the full call stack. But I'm going to click OK on this, and basically all you would need to do to eliminate this issue is you can go ahead and remove the security role. And when you do so, after the fact, if you were to click on convert to access team, now this would work. The other scenario that is a bit tricky that you must keep in mind is that if you have an owner team that was built in CRM 2011, and we've been using that for a while in the system, and perhaps it owns several records. In that particular case, you need to make sure that you reassign those records to another user or to another team. If your owner team owns any particular records, then the conversion to access team will not work and would trigger an error message. So the two main things to watch out for are, number one, you shouldn't have any security roles assigned to the owner team. You also must not have any records that you own before you try to start converting the team to an access team. And also that all the queues and the mailboxes associated to your owner team will need to be deleted. So let's go ahead and try to convert this now to an access team. So notice now that my opportunity selling team that I had just created as an owner type of team has now been converted to an access team, as you can see specified in the team type. So this would be considered a user created type of access team, since we've explicitly created this as a team with a fixed number of members that we can go back and keep changing. And also note that the access team here is not entity specific. However, we can create access team templates which are entity specific. So I'm going to walk you through that whole scenario. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable access teams on an out-of-the-box entity. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go over to settings and customizations. And let's select the account entity. So notice when we navigate into the account entity, it has an option to check mark access teams under communication and collaboration. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to hit save. So now that the account entity has been enabled for access teams, let's go ahead and return to our administration view where we can specify new access team templates. Notice that out of the box opportunity sales team template is being shipped in CRM 2013. So if you were to just click into this, you will notice that it specifies an entity of type opportunity and has specific access rights. And I will show you how the subgrid for this sales team template surfaces on the opportunity form. But for now, let's go ahead and try and create a new team template. And as you can see in the drop-down, I'm only seeing account and opportunity because these are the only two access team enabled entities in the system right now. And similarly, you could enable the access teams on any custom entity. So let's go ahead and set the template for the account entity, and we can specify access rights for read, write, and sharing. And we're going to go ahead and save this. So this is a generic team template that you can go ahead and start surfacing as a subgrid on the account entity specifically, and it would enable you to start adding users into your teams, into your access teams to be specific on a per record basis. So let me show you how that can be done. So now we're going to click on sales and we're going to drop back into our accounts view. Let's go ahead and customize the account entity now. So we're going to select a specific account entity form. We need to insert a subgrid that can surface the access team. So let's go ahead and call this subgrid account team, and this is the unique name. And you can specify any labels that you feel are appropriate. So I'm going to call this the account access team. Now for the data source, what we need to specify is, so we're going to switch this to all record types, and the entity is going to be users. So let's go ahead and locate that. And under users, the default view that you want to set over here is going to be associated record team members. So so the third view from the top. And as soon as you do that, notice now it gives you the option to specify team templates for the subgrid. So what would happen here is that if I had 5 different team templates that are all for the account entity, I could select any one of those 5. So now that I have selected my account team template, let's go ahead and set this. So this will be surfaced in my summary section, and let's go ahead and save and publish this form. After having published the form, I'm going to land back into an existing account. So let's select the Alpine Ski House sample. Now notice that the Accounts Access Team subgrid that I just created is now available on the form. So this is per record, meaning if I close out of this account and I click on a different sample, I could be using the Account Access Team template on a per record basis and have different members that are all using that template. So really the mapping would work in the sense that we would have one access team per account record, and each member in the team would have the specific access rights that I had specified for my account access team. So now, for example, if I need to add specific users for the Litware Inc. account that are currently working on this account, I can start adding those specific users into the subgrid, and that would add these users into the access team. So we can go ahead and click the plus button, and that would allow us to look up for existing users. So I'm going to add Andy, and additionally we can add a few other users like Jim and Nancy. So now we have 3 different users that have been added for the Litware Inc. account. But as I stated, if we're working on a different account, now you could have a different set of users specified on this particular account that are going to be working on the account, and we could keep changing the team dynamically. And again, because the team doesn't have any security role to it, the purpose of the team is collaboration rather than the concept of ownership. I'm also going to show you how access teams are surfaced on opportunities. So let's go ahead and click on Sales again, and we can click on Opportunities. So let's go ahead and select an open opportunity. I also want to show you how you can add users to the opportunity sales team, which ships by default as an access team template in CRM 2013. So if you open the opportunity form, specifically the refreshed opportunity entity form, you will find that there is a subgrid called sales team available there by default. I have 2 users added to this specific opportunity as part of the sales team for the opportunity. So we have Nancy and we have Thomas, and they have connection roles that are associated to them that can be edited in line as well. So Nancy is a sales professional in this case. And again, on different opportunities, I could have sales team that consists of different users, and they would have the same access rights based off of the access team template that the team was based on. So right now I'm logged in as Nancy. So to show you what I mean, let's go ahead and click on the home page for Nancy. So notice that Nancy by default has now started following the opportunity that she was added into the sales team for. So if we click into this one opportunity, it basically lands us into the same opportunity we were looking at. So Nancy currently is following this opportunity. So not only is Nancy following this opportunity, but if you change the view to My Connections, you would also see that the same opportunity is surfaced for Nancy. And when we click into this, we can verify that this is the same record we were looking at. So let me demonstrate what I mean by also adding Nancy to a different opportunity. So we have a list of open opportunities, and let's say that Nancy needs to be engaged on another ongoing opportunity selling scenario. So currently we can see that there are no sales team members in here. So if we were to try to add Nancy as part of this team, and in this particular sales team, she serves the role of a technical sales professional. So we could go ahead and add her as that type of connection and save this opportunity. So when we do that and land back on the home page, now notice that Nancy is following two opportunities. So in her What's New section, she can see both opportunities. So these links are clickable, or she can click into the opportunities off of here, and she would see both opportunities as opportunities that she is following, as well as she would see them in the connections view. Let's talk about the different security models that are now available in CRM 2013. So we have business units, and now we have teams of either ownership type and access team. Let's talk about business units first. So business units can be typically used to organize users based on access scope and the access requirements. So if we do know that the records can either be owned by our user or it can be owned by users in the same business unit, and also business units can be used to isolate access between departments and regions, as well as if you're looking to organize hierarchical access to users and business units at the top of the organization. One thing that you want to be careful about is that if implementing hierarchical access via business units is causing an explosion in the number of business units, you may want to look at remodeling. Let's talk about teams now. Teams in Dynamics CRM are optional. However, working with teams can sometimes be much easier to share information and collaborate with other users across business units. So as a group, you can own a record or you can access just the record. And you can also track information about the records and perform assigned tasks in a much more efficient and coordinated way. And while a team belongs to only one business unit, it can include users from other business units, meaning that a user can be associated with more than one team. Now I want to focus on the two types of teams that are available to you. So the first type is owner or ownership team, and the other type is access team. Some scenarios where ownership teams are a good fit for the security modeling would be, firstly, if you need to provide access to users across business units, that would be an automatic fit for trying to implement an ownership team. Also, if you're looking to have records owned by entities other than users, and you also want to apply security roles which are required by your company policy. And based off of that, also you could generate reports. So that may be another scenario. If the number of teams in your organization are fairly small and they are static, meaning that they are known and they're fixed, with team members not being added or removed frequently, an ownership team is also a good model. Also, if the team members require equal access to the record through the team security roles, an ownership team may be a good fit. Sometimes, though, what we do see is that team members that are part of the ownership team may require more access to the records than some other team members. So in that case, the only workaround available is to start sharing records with the users who are not on the team and start giving them fewer rights. Let's talk about access teams now. Teams that are dynamically formed and dissolved, and especially teams where the members are moving in and out of the team frequently, would be a great fit for using access teams. So this may often happen when your teams are working on special projects or for records that don't fit a clear category. You can easily then create a team to start working on new sales opportunities. Or similarly, you could have an account team that can keep changing dynamically. Also, for access teams, another good fit would be if users require different access rights on the record. So record can be accessed by several access teams, and each team provides different access rights on the record. So let's say we have one team that provides read access on the account. You could have another team then provide read, write, and append access rights on the same account. So you can have multiple access teams for the same record or the same entity type. Also, specific to access teams, there are actually two types that we have discussed today, and I want to recap those. So one is the auto-created access teams, which are always exposed as subgrids on the forms and are based off of an underlying access team template. And then the other type is a user-created access team, which is what we saw when you specify it in the administration area as an access team that is not entity specific, but it does have some access rights that are defaulted during the creation. So these are the two specific types that we talked about. So your auto-created teams, because they can only access one type of entity, they are specific to the entity that has been designated in its template. However, a user-created team, which has been created as a team of access type and is more open-ended, would then be able to access multiple records of the same type, meaning that it could be accounts, opportunities, or leads. Two settings in the deployment to keep in mind that are also exposed in the deployment properties table in your MSCRM_config database is number one, that there's a limit on the maximum number of templates that you can create for an entity. And this is specified in the max auto-created access teams per entity deployment setting. So per entity, you can have at a maximum 2 auto-created access teams. And then also there is a maximum on the number of entities that you can enable for auto-created access teams. And this is specified in the max entities enabled for auto-created access teams deployment setting, where the default is 5. Now I'm going to show you how you can look those up via the database as well. So what you see here now in my SQL Server is basically I'm querying the deployment properties table, which is underneath the MSCRM_config database, and there's a max entities enabled for auto-created access teams, and also there is a max auto-created access teams per entity. So these are the limitations I just described, and these would be set by default for your deployment, but you could try and change these via the deployment settings and that would be specifically for on-premise customers, because online customers wouldn't have a way to change this. The other thing to keep in mind is because there is a parental relationship between the team template and the access teams that are tied to it, according to the cascading rules, when you're deleting a template, all the access teams that were created from that template will get deleted. Lastly, I want to talk about module-based dashboards. We've alluded to module-based dashboards in our prior sessions, but basically in CRM 2013 now you will see that dashboards are your entry point into CRM by default, and they give your user the first run experience. So a dashboard node has been added to sales, marketing, and service areas in the sitemap, and you will see that the modules have certain dashboards that they default to. And I have a list of which dashboards correspond to which module or area. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in the user interface. So now I'm going to show you the module-based dashboards for my user. And my user in this particular case is a system administrator, so with the highest level of privileges. So when we click on the home button, as I discussed, there is an option, a personal option that determines which module you're landing in. So to expose that, where you would need to set that is basically, so you would click on the settings icon on the navigation bar, click on options, and when you do so, the very first option available in General tab is to select your home page and settings for the Get Started panes. So you can see that it is set to default based on the user role. But if I chose to, I could assign myself to a specific module that I think best suits my needs. It could be a custom module or a custom area. And also I could specify a sub area that I want to land in. So right now, as you can see, we're landing in dashboards, but perhaps there's a custom entity or another out-of-the-box entity that is best suited to my needs. So right now, I'm going to first walk you through the dashboard scenario. So as you can see, when we click on the home button, I'm landing in sales. So that means that my user is assigned the primary area of sales. And in particular, they're seeing the sales activity social dashboards. You also see a command bar available above the dashboard. So if I want, I can go ahead and select a different dashboard as the default for my user's primary landing area. So let's go ahead and select the marketing social dashboard under the sales area. So when we select the marketing social dashboard, now I have this option to set this as the default. So when we click on this, notice now that I can navigate away to another area, such as marketing. And we will see the marketing social dashboard. Similarly, if we navigate into the service area, we're going to see a different dashboard assigned to that particular area. However, now if we return to our home page, notice that the default is set to marketing social dashboard, which is what I had set. Similarly, I could set my landing dashboard to a different one, such as the Microsoft Dynamics CRM overview, and I could set this as my dashboard. So when I navigate away to a different area and return to the home page, I will now see the selected dashboard as my default. Alternately, from an administrative perspective, if you're trying to set at an organization level a default dashboard, you can do that from inside the customization editor. So you can select dashboards, and this will list all the available dashboards in your system. You can create new dashboards from this view or copy existing dashboards by clicking on Save As. Also notice that you can enable security roles, so your dashboards can be role-based so that they are specific to specific security roles in the system. But in this case, what I want to show you is that you can also set the sales performance dashboard as the default at an organization level. And you can go ahead and save and close that. So those are the two different ways you could set default dashboards. And as far as the upgrade scenarios go for dashboards, if you're upgrading from CRM 2011 to CRM 13 and your administrator had set a dashboard as default for all users, just like I did right now, then the dashboard in CRM 2013 would appear as the dashboard for each role's landing page. So what I mean by that is every user would see that dashboard in their home page when they land, and the landing page is specifically the assigned area or the assigned module that is their primary. Because now we do have dashboards in each module, so the settings that the administrator is setting for all the users are applicable to their primary assigned areas rather than all the different modules. And the other scenario could be that the user had set a dashboard of their own choice as their default dashboard. So in this case, in CRM 2013, what we will see is that the user would see the dashboard on their primary module or on the landing page of their particular role. So those are the two scenarios in regards to upgrade. And that concludes our discussion on module-based dashboards. This concludes our session on additional features for Dynamics CRM 2013.
Thank you for reviewing this course. Please look for the additional courses in this series on the Partner Learning Center. If you have additional questions on these features, you can ask the CRM community or request additional training through advisory services.